It was the first episode where we both realized that we had difference of opinion on a lot of topics.
On every topic.
Okay, on every topic.
मेरा brilliant idea है, मुझे पता है इसमें amazing business बनेगा, मैं शुरू करना चाहता हूँ. Should I quit my job today? So what's the most successful personality trait for a founder to have?
We have aspects where people have succeeded with no background in what they did. You have had college dropouts succeed and create really large businesses.
It's impossible. There is so much to do. You can never be everything that the business needs, right? So hi and welcome to the 4th episode of Unscripted. We're Mohit and Malika, founders of the Moms Company and known for creating the largest G2C exit in the country. At Unscripted, our attempt is to make entrepreneurship more accessible. And so we talk about our journey at the Moms Company. And today, in fact, we're doing something very interesting and different.
We've got a lot of questions from the people who've seen the last 3 episodes and all on entrepreneurship and very interesting questions and very relevant questions. And we thought instead of doing an unscripted chat between the two of us on any topic that we want to talk about, we're today going to start taking up those questions and answer all those questions. So we're doing this episode today. And in case you have any further questions, please leave them in the comment section below and we'll recreate an episode answering all the next set of questions as well.
All right.
This is going to be very driven by what the audience and everyone watching the episode has asked.
This is going to feel like an exam.
No, not really. There's some very interesting questions actually.
There's some lovely questions.
One, right? It says, I have an idea that's solving a problem and I want to convert it into a business. How do I start?
I had this exact conversation with a guy last week who said, मेरा brilliant idea है, मुझे पता है इसमें amazing business बनेगा, मैं शुरू करना चाहता हूँ, should I quit my job today? And the level of conviction he had was amazing. So it was very hard for me to tell him. I think the biggest step one is to do some research, right? I think if I go back to even the story at the Moms Company and how we started, you and I felt the pain as parents of not having great quality products, but we still went and spoke to 200 other moms. I wasn't convinced, but you came back and said, every mom said we have these same concerns with products, right? And that gave us the belief and conviction to start. So I think one of the biggest challenges that can happen is you love your problem so much, you say, मैं शुरू करता हूँ, and then you realize that, the number of people who actually care about it deeply enough is really tiny. And then you get stuck with maybe solving a problem, but building a small business.
Yeah. Set your TAM right.
Set your TAM and make sure you do enough research to give yourself conviction that हाँ, यहाँ business है. Right? It shouldn't be, a lot of the startup conversation is around really loving the problem and going deep into it, which is all true. But I think it is more important that that same problem is felt by so many other people to create a viable business. Now, depending on your business, you can say, I will create a business for 10 people. Each of those 10 people will pay me 10 crores because it's that big a problem for them. Great business. Or 10 crore people will pay me 1 rupee, right? You can do either, but know that that problem is big enough for people to pay you something for it.
Yeah. And I think I'll just add on to that, right? So before you start, the second thing to take care of is to make sure that whatever product you plan to launch is tested by enough people and there are people who are giving you validation, right? Because you cannot build something for yourself. You need to build something, as you correctly said, right? There has to be a pain point for a large set of audience for that. So it's very important that once you have made your product, please get it tested by a lot of different people because they are going to be the real people to give you feedback. I remember when we launched our first app and we did the first product, I literally went to 15, 20 sets of different moms to get feedback. And they were like, and we actually segmented saying that it'll be in Delhi, then I went to Bombay, and I went to Chennai, and I went to Bangalore. And there were these different set of moms in different segments from whom we got the products tested. And once they all said, yes, I like it, or a large section of them said they like it, is when we went ahead and launched the product. In fact, the first set of product that I had really liked was not something that we launched.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So it actually got rejected by the audience.
Yes, it was only once that we actually had a product which was 50-50 on the research. And in that product, when it had a 50-50 from the audience, was the one that I picked up and I decided to go ahead with the one that I liked. And it was on the fragrance, if you remember, for the body butter jar. Yeah. And I liked the mango flavor more than what the lavender flavor was. And then eventually there was 50-50 response on both, and everyone said this mango might not be like the best thing. What is this? Go for lavender. And I just went by the gut then by saying that, okay, if it's 50-50, then I want to go with that. And it actually turned out to be one of our best sellers and products that got listed like globally as one of the best as well, right? So go with your instinct, but before you go with your instinct, make sure that there are enough people who have validated your product as well.
Awesome. All right. Question 2.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what is the most important personality trait someone would need to be successful in your stream of work? I'm guessing as a founder. So what's the most successful personality trait for a founder to have?
Actually there are quite a few, but I'll just list my top picks in that, right? A very strong ability to persuade people on your idea and to convince them, because if you can't sell your own idea, if you can't sell your own company, if you can't sell your own thoughts, I don't think you can get suppliers on board, you cannot get team on board, you can't get people to believe, you can't advertise, right? So it's very important that you're very convinced about your idea and you have the strong persuasion ability to persuade everyone else on the table for it. The second I would say is something that's really important is the ability to have the courage to start up. It's not easy, right? It's going to be a lot of uncomfortable times at that point of time also. And having the courage just in self is not enough. You also need a village to support you during that period of time, right? So have the courage and the village who supports you while you're building something.
Yeah.
And third, a very strong eye on your line of business, right? So when we were doing our business, which is the line of beauty and cosmetics, you remember the number of samples that I called for testing?
God. We have 100 different products in our house, always.
Always. So everyone who came to my house and went into my bathroom, they were like, what is this? It's like a museum by itself, because I got products from Australia, US, London, wherever I went, right? So make sure the line of business in which you're working, you have full information about that. It's really, really important as well.
Yeah. I have a different take on this, actually. I think as a founder, the most important personality trait is to know what you don't know and be able to accept it, right? I speak to 8-10 different entrepreneurs every week, and everyone has some amazing strengths and some areas where they need a team to come in and support and fulfill and complement them, right? Great founders know the difference between the two and can, like you said, gather the people around them. Okay founders say, I will learn and I will try to do everything myself. And then they struggle because it's impossible. There is so much to do. You can never be everything that the business needs, right? So most important personality trait, know what you don't know and be able to go out and figure out whatever you need to do it. Part of creating a village.
This is part of creating a village. So to create the village. Great question. The third question. What essential experience one must have before doing a startup?
That's a great question.
It's a very interesting question because we have aspects where people have succeeded with no background on what they did. You have had college dropouts succeed and create really large businesses. And you have also had some of the most successful corporate job owners create really large successful businesses as well. Honestly, I don't think there is a set formula to it, right? Like, it depends on what you're looking to do. It depends on who you are as well. I have seen people who've been great at their corporate jobs fail at startup. I have seen people who've not been successful in their corporate jobs do exceedingly well and create unicorns as well, right? So in my opinion, I don't think there is a set answer for it, but a very strong ability of whosoever is starting up to be able to learn and constantly constantly unlearn is really, really important.
Okay. So I think it's different by industry. And going back to what you don't know, if you are starting up, for example, in the fintech space, there's a reason that fintech founders do it again and again and again, because every time you learn so much more, there is so much regulation around what you're building. There are so many contacts and the network that you have in the entire world of banking and NBFCs. That experience is phenomenally helpful when you're starting a new business, right? So I think in certain industry sectors, it makes a lot of sense to have expertise, right? As a person, for example, with consumer goods, if today you and me say, hey, let's set up a steel factory, that experience and lack of experience is really going to hurt us in the long term, right? So you have to just learn so much more. It makes you slower. But I think there are some industries and sectors, for example, in the world of digital apps, where it is much faster and you can get there faster. I think there the experience is different.
So, I have a contradictory point of view on this actually, because what experience can do for you is get you there faster and sooner with the connects and the contacts that you have. But if you remember, we had zero background in cosmetics.
Yeah.
Right? We had zero background in what we did. So, not to discourage anyone from the fact of it, it may be important. It gets you to some place sooner and faster with all the connects that you have. It's easy for a person to start retail as a business if they've had background in retail, because they know the ground rules of how things work, right? It might take someone much longer to achieve there. So I don't necessarily think industry experience it should be valued. It is important. And if you're looking to do a startup, then might as well do it in a field that you have experimented in. But is it paramount to sort of have an important successful business? I really don't think so.
So
I think
it's helpful but not critical.
It's not critical. Exactly. It's helpful, it's not critical. But going back to the same point, right? If you need to know what you know, and you need to know
what you don't know.
Fill the gap for something.
I think that's going to be the title of this episode.
Yes, so
you need to know what you don't know.
Fill it up with people. So if you don't know something, then fill it up with people who really know that thing.
On that topic, question number 4. How do I get my first few team members?
Oh, it's very interesting. In my opinion, going back in time, our first hire was a formulator, because as what we did not know how to formulate products, it was very important to get some really strong people who could make the products, right? Who could design the product, who could make the product. And the second person we had was like this hustler, if you remember.
Yeah, of course.
Who could just do it all.
Yeah.
Who could do it all. And we made both the hires through LinkedIn searches. Just cold messaged both these folks and got them to meet and speak to us. The ones who were not interested in speaking, in my opinion, I actually thought they were less risk-taking, which is, I think, would be an important quality for one of the early people who join you, right? Like the ability to take risks, the ability to say, it's fine, I'll figure it out and I will grow this, right? A desire to be a part of something that could grow potentially very big, and you feeling the fact that I was instrumental in its growth, right? All the early employees, even at the Momsco, feel very close to the brand because they built the brand from the beginning, right? So finding those people, you would notice that those people typically always respond back on LinkedIn to hear you out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to join you, but to hear you out. And consistently what everybody told us was they did not join the company, they joined the two of us.
Yeah.
Like they took their initial bet on the two of us. So I think when you go ahead to hire the first set of people, of course, like reaching out to people through cold messages, making sure you reach out and there's not an agency that's reaching out for you, right? Because it speaks a lot when the founders try and reach out to someone. And then just having the persuasive ability, the ability to just convince them, saying that I'm on to something really big and I would love for you to join me in my journey, is something which is really important. That's the only way to hire people, because you don't have... Sometimes when we started in the first hire, we didn't have a product to show him. He built the product, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have a product to show him. We didn't have a packaging to show him. We didn't have a website to show him. We didn't have a logo. We had nothing to show him. But that guy came in to be a part of the vision that we had set. So before
and
you
then
hire people, make sure you have like a strong layout of vision.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So by default, those people are hungry.
Yeah.
Right? I think whatever way, if it is a warm message via some friends, that works great. Via ex-colleagues, that works great. Via LinkedIn, works less great, but works. I think if you are able to identify people who are really hungry and want to make a difference, it is easier to persuade them with, here is our vision and what we will build together. And if people can join you for that journey, then that's fantastic. And then the first few team members get the others. Most important.
So I'll just add to that, right? So both those people, I just realized, have gone ahead on their own entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, but they're hungry.
They're both entrepreneurs.
They're
today.
hungry and unsettled. I think that is the core philosophy that you will find. The first few team members will always be hungry and unsettled.
Yeah.
And because they want to do amazing stuff in life, they are willing to take a very large bet on you, even when you have no product packaging or logo.
Question number 5. How do I make my team trust me more?
Oh, you should take this one first. Because I think we did it very differently, both of us.
Yeah. So how I personally believe in leading by example, right?
Yeah.
If you can't trust someone, you can't expect someone else to trust you in return. So I would actually trust a lot in everyone. I would give them the space they wanted to thrive, and I would genuinely care for their success. We made some great heroes in the organization. In fact, creating heroes was one of the core values at the mom school that we had set for ourselves. So I think just the ability for you to show trust on someone helps other person be more confident in trusting you as well. And I think the second most important thing was have a very clear line of communication. Like, I could speak to my team about anything that I wanted. I've had a great day, I've had a bad day, I'm stuck, I'm not stuck, I want you to do this, you're doing a great job, you're not doing a great job, I want this to change, I want you to change personally. I gave all of that openly, good, bad and ugly. And the fact that they had heard it from me and not from anyone else was, I think, they kind of always believed and trusted in the fact that good, bad, ugly, we would hear it directly from her. She wouldn't be thinking about something and that thing will come to me as a surprise. Yeah. So that element of surprise or shock from your reporting boss, your senior boss, or like the CEO, did never exist. Like, I upfront kept the line of communication very open for everyone.
I think for us it was also very core, because we said if you can't trust each other in the company, how can customers trust you?
Yeah.
And the entire brand was built on this notion of, we've lost faith and trust in baby care products. Here is a company that we will trust, right? For the very high quality of products that they offer us. So it was very core. The way I'd say, just tying it up, the way I think we built trust at the mom's company was by being very, very reciprocal, right? So we treat every team member with extreme respect and trust, allowing them to treat us the same way. We give them very open, honest, good, bad, ugly feedback, allowing them and encouraging them to give us open, honest, good, bad, ugly feedback. Trust is a two-way street. It works only if you treat the other person exactly with the amount of trust and respect that you want to give. And that's when you get it back. Otherwise, you don't.
It actually brings me to a beautiful example of what we had, right? It wasn't, I think it's not just what you do, but it's also a culture that you set. So if you remember, there was a point in time in the organization when we were in a very high growth phase where we noticed this trend where people were sending each other emails.
Yeah.
You remember? They would keep sending each other email. And I remember...
As CC'd below.
And second, reminder, gentle reminder 1, gentle reminder 2, gentle reminder 3. Right? And we were part of all those mails. And I remember one day walking out of my room and like screaming out loud to everyone, guys, we are not a company that plays email.
No, email ping pong.
Yeah, there's a company that we don't pay email ping pong. The person sitting right next to you, so please just walk up to the person to figure out why he's not done what he's supposed to do. Don't play this email game marking your CCs as bosses to CCs, right? To say that they have noticed I have done my job. Because for me, it is very clear that you are successful if your job gets done. You're unsuccessful if your job doesn't get done.
Yeah, and,
right? So
and having an email doesn't matter.
Yeah, that email chain is immaterial, right? And I think that got the people to get up and start having conversations. And that also built trust very interestingly, right? Because when you spoke to the person, you realized why he had not done something. And most times, it was not always a bad intention or the fact that I didn't want to do it. Sometimes there was a capability gap. Sometimes the people were not clear on what they wanted to do. Sometimes they just needed help with prioritization of what was there on their plate. And when this thing happened of getting up from your chair instead of sending that email and having the conversation with that person, was when this whole conversation started flowing in and people started trusting each other instead of, he's not responding to my email.
And so, this gets much, much better if you can set that as a benchmark.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. So next one is a really interesting question. I know we've struggled with a few times. I have a lot of other founders come to me with this question. So I have a team member who wants to leave, but I desperately need him in the company. What do I do?
So I'll tell you what I do, and then Mohit will do this. We both have very different leadership skills, so he'll add on. So for me, if I wanted to retain someone who was going to leave, I would just sit down with the person to understand the intention for why the person wants to leave, right? If the intention was money, I would try and solve for it, right? If the intention if the intention of leaving had got to do with the fact that they were going through a personal emergency where they needed more time at home, and and a stabilized company would give them all of that. And there were many such instances, right? There were cases in which some wives had gone through miscarriages, they needed to spend more time at home. No questions asked, I accepted when they wanted to do. If someone wanted to leave to start their own company, as a rule, I never stopped them. I said, as an entrepreneur, we cannot do that. But if there was someone who was leaving for another company for just a position raise, right? A lot of times people did that. So for instance, I'm an assistant manager here, they're giving me a manager role. Or if it was about saying that I don't have anyone reporting into me here, but I'll have 2 people reporting into me there. So those were the conversations where I actually sat down as a coach. As someone says that as a leader, you wear multiple hats at different point of time, right? So I have also sat them down to coach them, saying it's not the right decision for me, as close to being a mother at that point of time, to say it's not the right thing. I've never forced anyone into a decision of staying back.
Yeah.
But I have coached them into staying back.
Yeah.
Right? And in most cases, it's worked out for them, because what they fundamentally needed, if there's something really valid about it, I let them go. But if there's something very superficial, then I try and solve for it and try and retain the person back. I never actually gave in to all the requests that they had either. So it doesn't mean that I'm an assistant manager here, they're giving me a manager role. If you give me a manager, I wouldn't give them a manager role. But if there was this is my salary and that is my next salary, I would never match that salary. I would do whatever we could, and then of course we would meet midway, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't always mean giving in to whatever demands they come up with.
Yeah. I think as a founder, you need to have the ability to realize the real reason the person is leaving. Many cases, what they say is very different from how they feel, right? So for example, we've had conversations, very brutal conversations with people where they say, I'm leaving for salary, I'm leaving for another company, etc., etc. But when you dig down into it, they're saying, I don't have faith in what you are doing, right? We've had those conversations. We've had people leave like that. I think understanding what is the real reason for the person leaving is the core as a founder. If you can get to that, once the person has decided this is not the company for me, please let the person go. It doesn't matter if you match the salary, etc., etc. It doesn't matter what speed of growth you are, how desperate you need the person, because you can offer everything that the person wants, but you cannot for the moment. You cannot change the person's mind in the long term about his own future and his own prospects within the company and the company, right? So as a founder, can you tease that out and really start to understand what is it that this person is leaving for is the skill, right? And based on that, you decide whether it's worth it or no. What we found, I think, over time is while in the short term, it hurts to let someone go, in the long term, it's always better if they've decided this is not the place for me.
Yeah. And I think a large part of that is also because when you hired the person, there was a particular salary that you could afford to pay the person, and the person had done X number of or X years of experience. By the time the person is leaving, you always have the ability to hire someone at that salary or slightly more. It's a much higher salary than the previous salary, right? So you will find people. There are a lot of good people around, but as Mohit said very correctly, right? If someone has the intention of leaving, is something which is not going to add value to your business, you should let the person go.
Yeah. How do I ensure the team is motivated?
It's a very interesting question. I split into 2 parts, right? Let's talk about company level pay, how you make sure that your entire team is motivated, and then we'll come down to the individual level.
Yeah.
Individual is slightly more harder, but on the team level, my one learning was that as long as people have clarity on what their role is, they were always motivated to do more, right? I think one good thing that we did while we were doing this was that we made sure that there was one big vision at the Momsco, and for every team member, we tried to tell them how their contribution plays an important part in the overall vision of the company. So the fact that every person in the company felt that I am playing a part to build this really large story was what kept them motivated, right? Like that was, I think, the biggest motivator for most of them. But it tended to break sometimes when we hit that 3-4 crore mark because it wasn't good enough. because
it wasn't enough.
Because the number of people really became much, much larger. And that is when we introduced this whole concept of performance management, and it had a huge impact on people. Just knowing this is my job, and this as my job contributes to this larger picture of the company achieving their goals, and this is my part, and this is what I need to do, played a huge role in keeping them motivated. And of course, linked to that, then we had rewards and recognition for everybody in the cave.
Yeah.
We made sure we partied a lot, and and by parties, they don't have to be like really big fancy parties. Of course, we had a few of those in the year, but what we did was had these little samosa parties, kachori parties, jalebi parties, cake. Like at any
Celebrations.
occasion we needed, we had a cake. Right, someone's birthday cake, someone's leaving cake, someone's welcomed cake. So there was just too much happening. But all of it just gave people the chance to come together, to interact with each other. And I think that's what kept them motivated. On an individual level, it gets a little harder because everyone's personal motivators are very different, and they define their own success and motivations very differently.
But we thought through this, right? So at the individual level, I remember we said over time we came to the idea of making heroes, right? And the idea is सबकी जिंदगी एक मूवी है, उस मूवी में वही हीरो है.
Correct.
If you can figure out what makes that person a hero in his story, or her a hero in her story, and what is the role that you as a company can play in that, the person will never leave and they'll be super motivated. That meant that over time, people were motivated because we understood कि उसे अपना घर बनाना है, and we helped him get there. We knew someone said मुझे अपना business शुरू करना है, and we worked with him and helped him get there. Right? Individually, उसको hero कैसे बनाना है? If you can figure that out, then you are gold. That is, I think, the best way to keep every single individual motivated.
We had making heroes was one of the core values at the company.
Yeah, and we stuck to it. And we made a few, so.
Yeah, we made actually quite a few.
We made a few, so very, very proud of that.
Right, so the next one says that how to avoid internal conflicts in the team.
Oh, it's an interesting one. I think what Malika said, my reason is everyone who joins your company joins for doing good. They want to make a difference. They want to do good. They actually want to have impact. Where they get lost is if they are unclear about what their goals, targets, performance is dependent on. And internal conflicts happen when either 2 or 3 people are unclear about what their goals and targets are. Because if they are very clear, then it's very easy. Or they don't understand what is the impact of my decision on the other person. Right? If you can clarify that, bring them into a room, then you will really reduce internal conflicts. I know people talk a lot about office politics. I think office politics actually come in the vacuum that is created by lack of clarity. If you are not clear कि मुझे करना क्या है, then you start saying shit. मुझे नहीं पता how I'll be a good performer in this company. Let me go and talk to person X and talk to person Y and talk to this other person and मेरा impression ठीक हो. And the minute you start doing that, office politics starts, right? So reduce internal conflicts, reduce politics is just make people very, very clear on what they are supposed to do and how does that fit into the larger company.
So I have a very different point of view. Let conflicts happen. That's what I personally feel, right? Company politics is not okay and should not be acceptable at any level. But conflicts can be very healthy actually at some times, So that's my personal take on it. And the reason why I would say that is, when you're building your company and you're building your startup, you're putting these people, as Mohit said, right? Like people who want to achieve a lot in their life, the people who want to grow really fast in their life. They're the ones who are the best performers in the startup. If you put 5-6 of them together in a room,
they will fight.
All in agreement with each other. It's a disaster.
Yeah, problem there, right?
Let them fight. Let them problem solve. I have witnessed conflicts sitting like a bystander on it.
Eating your popcorn, watching them fight.
Like popcorn, but yeah, like something like that. Must be eating something. We had like this craze of chas in the middle, so maybe for that chas, and like sitting and watching over the whole story incoming, And at that point of time, my role was not as a resolver to the conflict. It was of a moderator to the conflict, right? Like the conflict can't get ugly and personal. and you can't attack another person personally or say that you don't know shit, like your last campaign failed or you did not do this well, your sales number have not been met for the last month, right? It can't get personal. But a healthy conflict is great, yeah. There's all these people you've put together. Let them fight it out and let them, amicably arrive at an answer. हम घर पे भी तो यही करते हैं.
हाँ.
जो हमारे साथ लड़ते हैं, you tell them please solve it amongst
Solve it
yourselves,
and come back.
right? That's all. And you'll be surprised. I have actually seen some really strong bonds getting built from people who have fought with each other, resolved their fight because eventually they realize it's all for the good of the company.
Yeah.
So I'm actually all pro.
So okay, let's caveat
conflicts,
that.
but not
So,
office politics.
As long as internal conflicts are people fighting both for the better of the company and arriving at a conclusion together, while it may be messy, but the objective is right, let it happen.
Yeah, no
if
personal
if it is
attacks.
personal,
No, it cannot
stop
be
it
personal.
immediately.
It cannot be a personal attack. It can't be office politics.
Yeah.
But if there are three people trying to get their heads around the next campaign or the business plan that is done, please encourage it.
Yeah. Oh,
Let's,
on office politics,
encourages.
I'll give you an interesting story. So this trick I learned from Kunal when I was working at Snapdeal. If he saw a hint of office politics, दो बंदे बीच में लड़ रहे, he'll call person 1, he'll call person 2 into the room. He said, मैंने सुना ये कहा, solve, and I will watch. So to what you said, he used to create those situations where it was so clear that there is no room for politics. Other conflicts are good.
Yeah, they're good. I totally believe they're good.
You're a fan of conflict.
No, I'm not a fan. There can be some really heated conversations that happen. But as I said, you moderate those conversations while you sit and sip on something or eat your popcorn. Okay. What should I be afraid of as a founder?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Um,
That's more your zone than mine.
What should I be afraid of as a founder?
As founders, I was like an eternal optimist, and Mohit was the more realistic person who would be constantly figuring out what next to do.
Yeah, so I was
it's
actually
the best question for you.
Yeah, shit. And my answer was going to be, as a founder, you have to be afraid of everything. Because the reality is, what you are trying to do is build a business with far lesser capital than other people, fighting a battle many others have probably fought and failed. You will typically have pressures from team members, from investors, from competitions, from partners, all of that, right? So you have to be afraid of everything to the extent that it drives action and makes you better, right? The super famous, I think, best line on this is an entire book that only the paranoid survive, right? Which talks about the history of Intel and how over the years, while every other person failed in their domain, they were so constantly paranoid and becoming better and better and better.
But that's not fear.
That they worked.
That's paranoia.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So I'll change it a little to say, don't be afraid of anything because anything can change, but keep a close eye and watch on absolutely everything because only the paranoid survive.
Thank you so much for all your questions. It was a very interesting episode. I think we both really enjoyed. I'm speaking for him as well. It was the first episode where we both realized that we had difference of opinion on a lot of topics.
On every topic.
Okay, on every topic. And it was a lot of fun because I think when you're running a company, you forget to have these chats. Yeah. So it was a very good reminder of our own internal personal motivators and how we ran the company. So thank you so much for sending in the questions. We had a lot of fun. Please do keep sending in your questions. The purpose of Unscripted is to make other entrepreneurs successful in whatever they're doing, and to give you access to people who have kind of done it before. So if you have any questions, if you want us to have a conversation with anybody, if you have a guest you would want us to call on podcast, please do leave it in the comment section below and we'll be very happy to answer your questions and get whomsoever you want to have spoken to.
And we'd love your help in taking this Gyan global. So if you did enjoy the episode and you learned a little bit, please do like, comment and share, and definitely come back with questions. Until next time.
See you. Bye.